Joining us now, as he does every Friday at 8 a.m. to get into the matchup of the weekend, is Chris Carter of the Post-Gazette. He's on the Fan Hotline, presented by Sullivan Super Service, Pittsburgh's trusted plumbing and HVAC provider for over 50 years. Good morning to you, Chris. Thanks for jumping on. How you doing, buddy?
Morning, fellas. How we doing?
We're doing good. We got Harry from Dumb and Dumber. We got me dressed as Rich Rodriguez, but nobody knows because this is how I dress typically every Friday. And we've got Harry Callis dressed up as a radio host, not a producer. Are you going for anything at Halloween?
Right now I'm not dressed as anything, but I'm going to a friend's Halloween party. I will be dressed as basically the person that everyone says I look like all the time anyways, and that will be Jerome Bettis.
Ooh, very nice.
You get Jerome Bettis?
I can see that.
How do you guys not know that this is like the joke around everyone? It's just like everyone's like, "Oh my God, you look like a young Jerome Bettis." It is like it is the thing that I have gotten for the last like 10 years of my life.
Can I ask you a question?
So that's what we're doing here, Adam. That's the point of the segment.
Yeah, but I'm prefacing this one because it might be an uncomfortable question. Do you think it's you think people are doing a thing there? Because I don't think you look like Jerome Bettis.
It's light-skinned dudes with beards.
There you go.
There was one time.
There you go.
Yeah, and like some of it's reasonable. Like I actually kind of see Jerome Bettis. There's weird ones that I don't see. Like when I was skinnier, I used to get Drake all the time, and I like kids used to be like is that kid? I literally had a person in Vegas one time like grab my shoulders and be like, Drizzy, it's you! Oh my God! And I'm like, what? He's like, oh my bad, man. But
Me too,
I
Chris.
like Drake. When I got my fade right,
Sucks when it
I
happens.
was cool, But then when I got older and I started to put on weight, one time I was running around at the Whitfield Championships and I heard these high school kids go from the stands like, "Yo, he looks like that one rapper." And I turned, I'm like, they're about to call me Drake. And they said, "He looks like DJ Khaled." And I said, "Who said that? Who said that? Don't you dare say that." Yeah. So light-skinned dudes with beards.
Well, I will get off this in a second here, but the funniest and the potentially the most offensive one of all time, not that he's not a good-looking man, is when we were at lunch prior to a Steelers game. You, me, sitting there with Mark Caboli, and Caboli said you look like PK Subban. Like, come on, Mark, what are we doing there, bud?
What?
I wasn't going to say his name, but yeah, Caboli did do that. And he did that in Chicago one time when we were like, walking out of a restaurant, the night before we were covering Steelers-Bears. And there was this middle-aged white couple that turned and looked at him and said, "Sir, you have to apologize. No, he does not look like PK Subban." And to this day, he's like, "I kind of see it."
No, not even a little bit.
No.
Chris Carter joining us here, Drake, on the Fan Morning Show. Chris,
I appreciate Drake.
Michael Pittman, you got pierced nipples, also who's averaging 21 and a half yards a catch. You've got Jonathan Taylor, who's playing at Saquon Barkley levels from last year. You got a quarterback that has taken fewer than 10 sacks, who doesn't turn the football over, an elite offensive line. If you were coordinating this Steelers defense, Chris, what's the number one priority? What do you try to take away first?
Well, it's funny. I was talking to Zach Hicks, the host of Locked On Colts for Crossover Thursday yesterday, and one thing he brought up is that there's a misnomer about how the Colts operate their offense. You look at how many yards Jonathan Taylor gets, people think that they run to set up the pass, but it's the opposite. He said they pass to set up the run. They kind of bring out Daniel Jones and let him get going through the air, and then once that happens, then Jonathan Taylor starts to run the ball, and then because you're so caught off guard by the passing game, it makes the run game more devastating, and then the offensive line demolishes you, and then Jonathan Taylor rips your head off. And so I think one of the big keys here is you cannot allow the middle of the field passing game to thrive with Indianapolis, which is kind of scary because the Steelers have stunk at defending the pass. They're literally last in the NFL in passing yards per game right now. So to me, I mean, you got to stop the run. You can't let Jonathan Taylor beat you, but I think that the tricky part here is you got to come out and you cannot allow those middle of the field passing concept, those levels where they try to manipulate the linebackers into making mistakes. They got to be sound there, and I think it's going to be winning a lot of inside leverage, making sure that you're taking away the quick reads, forcing him to hold on to the ball, and then can your pass rush get home? Because I know a lot of people are saying, where's TJ Watt, where's Cam Hayward? But when quarterbacks are throwing the ball in less than 3 seconds on average the last few weeks, you're not going to get home. development. So that's what the Steelers have to do in this game. I kind of like their run defense right now. I think they've defended the run better in the past few weeks. The problem is you can't allow teams to get to quarterbacks to get on their first read. You do that against the Colts, they're going to rip your head off and score 50 points, not just 30. So that's got to be a key there. But I also think that one of the other ways to beat this team is sometimes your best defense is your offense. And right now the Steelers offense is the better unit. And if the Steelers offense can come out here, I think that jumbo package could be very lethal because the Colts, they don't go much base. They basically live in nickel. You could come out and you can run these guys over, but you got to do it efficiently and you got to control the clock.
Chris, did you say you think the Steelers offense is the better unit right now? Or did I mishear that?
Defense. I mean, no. I think the Steelers offense is better than the Steelers defense right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm not saying the Steelers offense is better than the Colts offense.
Yeah, okay. I was going to ask you what made you say that, but I got you now. The better of the two Steelers.
No, yeah. And listen, the Steelers defense, there are some very course-correcting things they could do to be a better unit and live up to the hype that they've been built up to. But it's just showing that, like, hey, why haven't they course-corrected? I think that's something that's continuing to happen. And the more that it happens, the more you start to look at Mike Tomlin and Terrell Austin like, hey, what are y'all doing? Because there is talent here to make it happen. So I do think that that's part of it. But, again, right now, I think the offense is the more cohesive unit.
So you wrote about over at the old postgazette.com, Chris, about Kyle Duggar and the role that he's going to play and the type of player he is. What did you learn in reporting that, and what can fans expect on Sunday out of him?
Well, I think the Steelers want him to basically be their Deshaun Elliott. Kyle Duggar is not a supreme coverage man, but he's a really good run and tackle guy. And so he's a good athlete. And like when you look at his combine numbers from like 6 years ago, he came into the league a pretty good. Like he was like people forget he's a Division II guy in college. Deshaun Elliott played at Texas, and he was a 6th round pick. This guy played at a D2 school. And in doing so, he had a great combine. And when people saw the combine and his size, they were like, we got to make that. We got to look at this guy. And so that's why the Patriots brought him in. And that's why, he was pretty solid there. But what he's going to be able to do is he can be a bigger guy that can run, tackle, help against the run, help against, underneath passes and do that. But the problem is you got to get him up to speed. And I really think that that's going to be the biggest challenge here is how quickly can he learn the different roles of the defense, because this defense is complex. It's not a simple defense, and I think that's been part of the problem here is that they want to disguise a lot. And I even asked Terrell Austin this last week before the Packers game. I was like, at what point do you sacrifice complexity for just playing well? Because when you're blowing coverages, and it's part of it's because guys are trying to disguise things and they're failing to disguise something, or they're too much in the disguise to actually play their real assignment. At what point do you say, forget that? We just need to cover right now. We just need to. I don't care if they know we're in man. I don't care if they know we're in cover 2. We're just got to do this well enough to make them hold on to the ball so our pass rush can get home. And basically, Terrell Austin was like, the day that we stop disguising is the day that we should not try to play defense. And so I hear that, and I think that's a smart way to say, hey, we're not going to give up on doing that. We got to keep working at it. But at some point, you have to be good at doing that part of the game, and that's where I'm not sure if Kyle Duggar is going to pick up his speed enough. But I do think they need him because, frankly, Chuck Clark, I think he at least tries. Like he brings effort, but he's just, you saw against Tucker Kraft in that slant touchdown. He can't cover. He is at his best when he's a downhill box safety, and when he's not in that role, he is a liability for the Steelers. They need help at safety right now.
No doubt about that. Chris Carter, the Post-Gazette and the Locked On Steelers podcast, joining us here in the Fan Morning Show. You mentioned course corrections. I mean, that would be one right there. What else would you propose for Terrell Austin and Mike Tomlin as course corrections that you think could help this defense?
I think that their outside cornerbacks need to be Joey Porter Jr. and Brandon Echols. I think Darius Slay, he's made some plays this season, but like that play on the wide receiver screen.
Oh my God.
Like he just let the guy walk into the end zone. It was inexcusable to me. And like, it's a shame because when I looked at the All-22, you see, you think that like when you watch the touchdown, like, man, no one did anything there. But really, the whole defense did what they were supposed to do except Slay. Juan Thornhill jumped into an interior gap that forced Savion Williams to the sideline, and then Patrick Queen takes up 2 blockers. Like he's like basically holding them up so that Slay can be free and make this play, and he doesn't even like come over to help. And I'm just like, what is that? And so when you see that, and you just also know that Darius Slay's not covering guys well right now, he doesn't have the speed that he used to have. It kind of makes you say, what are you doing here? And so I think Echols and Porter. I also think this team should go get a cornerback. I thought Roger McCreary would have been a good option, but the Rams traded for him last week, so he's off the table. I think Reek Woolen could be an option if the Seahawks are willing to part with him. He's on the last year of his deal right now, but. You know, if Corey Trice could be healthy, but he apparently has another injury already. So I don't know how serious that will be. But I think, you need outside corners for this system to work, and you need guys who are at least going to take away the first 3 to 4 seconds of a route. And if you can get that, I think that changes a lot about how this defense plays.
I want to ask a question about the offense, Chris. We've been belaboring the defense. Sure. Roman Wilson had a pretty good game this past one, I think 4 for 74. Do you take that as a sign that he is sort of turning a corner? Is there more to come? Do you expect more out of him against the Colts? Where are you at with Roman Wilson?
Absolutely. In fact, I'll have a story on him later today. I was working on that until the Duggar trade, and so then we kind of course-corrected. We did our thing there. But Roman Wilson, when I asked Aaron Rodgers about him, he said that last week he had an amazing week of practice. And then he said, when we talked to Aaron Rodgers on Wednesday, he said Wednesday was another great practice for Roman Wilson. I think Roman Wilson's just finding his feet in the NFL. And this was kind of what Mike Tomlin, what Aaron Rodgers, what a lot of people said about it. It's like, hey, man, give this kid time to grow. He was hurt all last year. He couldn't get his feet under him. Now he's starting to, and you're seeing him find his confidence. And I do think that he's on the verge of showing people. And I think it's another reason why, I know a lot of people think the Steelers should just go get a wide receiver too. And I'm not saying eliminate the possibility, but I think that the Steelers are like, we got a really good guy here. And we also like Calvin Austin. So I don't know if we need to do that versus maybe we need to fill up one of the weaknesses that we thought was a strength on defense, and that's the outside cornerback position. But to answer about Roman Wilson, yeah, I mean, he's getting into his routes better. He's getting into his breaks better. And he's also finishing plays. Like that first deep ball was a scramble drill where he stuck with the play. He initially did a good job, but then he was like, oh, Aaron rolling to his right. Let me keep working with him. He did a good job. And he's also Roman Wilson's not a guy that's patting himself on the back. Like I asked him about it, and I was just like, Roman, break down how that happened, because I thought he'd be excited to talk about a really big play for him. He was like, yeah, it was a scramble drill. That was it. Like I was like, okay, I guess. Thanks
Roman. For the insight.
Yeah, but I think that he has a level head on his shoulders. He's working really hard, and now it's producing results. And Aaron Rodgers, and something else Aaron Rodgers said that I thought was really good was he said one thing that also happens. Aaron Rodgers, he's a field general. He can see the whole field. He appreciates that on every single play, Roman is doing his job. He's running his route as hard as he can. Even when he's the 4th or 5th read on a play, if the first read's DK Metcalf and Pat Frymuth or Darnell Washington, Roman Wilson is still digging out his route really hard, which is not something a lot of young receivers do. It's something George Pickens didn't even do for the Steelers. So that's something that he appreciates, and he knows that, hey, if Roman's my last read, I can go to him and know that he's busting his butt.
It'll be God's plan. Thank you, Drake. Appreciate the time that you spent with us this morning.
I got my butt kicked by Kendrick Lamar last year.
Chris Carter of the Post-Gazette and the Locked On Steelers podcast, one of our favorite segments of the week. Thank you, buddy.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, fellas.
We'll talk to you next Friday.